Jeff Sample, welcome to the Preconstruction podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Gareth. It's awesome to be here. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Good, man. You're in the mountains or the woods in Pennsylvania?
Yep, in
Wonderful.
Pennsylvania, actually. I just came off of my annual 10-day hiatus from technology and just hanging out at the lake. I highly recommend everybody does it. It gives you a different view of really a world without technology. Is quite fun for a little while, at least.
Very good. Now let's hear the real reason you're detoxing after advancing pre-construction.
You're absolutely right. Actually, it was a wild ride this year. It was great. Hanson Wade put on an incredible show. Advancing Precon was a lot of fun.
Brilliant. Well, let's start there then, because obviously we all know about the Advancing Preconstruction conference. It was in Vegas. How was it? Getting bigger and bigger every year? How did you guys find it at Join?
Well, I will tell you, the Join team, we were there last year, and obviously, grain of salt, because last year was still kind of coming out of COVID. But man, I was really impressed with how many people showed up, and not just how many people showed up this year, but the quality and the change in those people. The quality of conversations going on, the change in the conversations on stage. It's fantastic, man. We saw, a lot more owners. One particular owner panel there with a very diverse background of folks from different industries, different sectors of the building world. And they had a lot of the same things they wanted to talk about. They want and demand new things out of buildings. It's not like building buildings is getting easier, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I love about these meetups and these groups, these communities. It has to happen because everybody's sitting in their own little box, in their own wee state, in their own wee city, thinking, oh my God, I'm having these problems. And they don't realize everybody else is having the exact same problems. And until we actually open up our mind and share the problems with each other, and as a collective find solutions, it's going to be difficult for everyone. We can make this industry as easy as we want. And Join are obviously part of that. And I even forgot to introduce you. But Jeff Sample, you are I want to say you've just changed. You're the industrial evangelist. I like that.
So I'm the industry evangelist here at Join. So I joined the company about 18 months ago. I was employee number 17. We were pretty small at that point. Just the product had been around for a while, had been growing, but it was the right time. And we're just excited, man. We're a first of its kind pre-construction platform. We fit in a space that we think, and we've doubled down. And I think Advancing Precon showed this, that, modern collaborative construction delivery methods are the future. And, we've staked our claim on that. We think that's the case. And we think our customers have done the same. And we've seen that they're growing faster. Right. I mean, that was the interesting thing. When we were advancing Precon last year, we were, sort of new to the world. And this year we got to see a ton of our customers and hear about, the successes that they're having in general. I don't think Join ever really wants to take credit for being the thing that makes them successful. We just think we're a great tool to support these transformations, these changes in processes, these ways that general contractors are meeting the needs and the demands of owners. Brilliant. Of architects too. Changing anything's hard, right? Yeah. But anything worth doing is got to be a little hard. If it was easy, then it doesn't feel as worthwhile, right? It's not easy, man. So we love that they're doing it, but we really think they deserve a new set of tools, but that we're just missing, right? You have your estimating platforms, and those are really important, and those were born out of Excel, right? And it was like, oh, well, Excel's doing these things, but we need to centralize those databases. We need to make that reusable. We need to make it collaborative. Things like Back and Destiny that really amplified that world. Well, we feel like we're running a parallel course in a new spot where Excel's doing a lot of what Join does, but we're centralizing it. We're collecting the data. We're harvesting it. We're making it available to use in the future. We're powering those teams because, Gareth, this, while it was cool and Advancing Precon was growing, it's not like pre-construction folks grow on trees.
The old saying, the future of construction is pre-construction. The future of pre-construction is talent and technology. And listen, the capacity deficit, the amount of hospitals, schools, apartments we have to build in the next 20 years is it's actually getting worse because of COVID. They're just stacking up on top of each other, and it's impossible. The flow of people, the flow of talent's not there. So we need technology and talent to work together. And
one of the guys that I work with, and I always like to say, the cool part for us is when we finally get joined into the hands of a team, they'll turn around and tell us, man, it feels like you just gave us superpowers, to just do more. And that we say this, I say this over and over in construction, and it's part, it's part to be a part of the process, right? This isn't just a blame game on any one group or particular, software or anything. Everything starts off slow, and it's bifurcated, and then it evolves.
Yeah.
And that's where we are in construction, is that it has to allow teams to stop working in the project and working on the project. It's the same thing for businesses. Construction companies spend too much time in construction and not on the company itself, on growing it, on being able to scale, to take these talented people that you're talking about, because they are. I mean, sit down with any one of them. I don't care if it's a superintendent, a project manager, a senior estimator, a VP of pre-con, or a CEO, or a chief operating officer. You sit down, these are amazing people that, love to build whatever it is they're building, but they've got to be unleashed to do that more consistently through good tools, right? Then you can really, it's like you said, hospitals, schools, housing.
Yeah.
We've got to build all of those. It's not slowing down. It's not going away. And in fact, if you're out there building, it's not like your timelines, you're getting more time for projects. You're not.
Yeah.
You're getting less. It's not like they're getting less complicated.
Yeah.
They're getting more complicated.
100%.
So how do you manage that? How do you go ahead?
And exactly, how do you manage that? But how do you got to get these mundane tasks off people's desks? The burnout rate within pre-construction and estimating, it's too high. I mean, we're asking people to come into this industry, and then we're losing all the we're not, I tell you what we're not doing. We're not retaining the knowledge of the really senior people or the mid-level people that are getting burnt out, that have been doing it for 10 years and aren't getting any help, and are asked to bid on 5-6 projects a week now, compared to 2 or 3 years ago. And that would be a big problem for me. And technology has to be the answer there.
Well, you're right. It has to be the answer. And we're asking them to do that with less and less information, right? We call that at Join pricing in the white. We want these in modern delivery methods. We're at the table very, very early in schematic design. Sometimes it's a napkin sketch, and they want to know a good rough idea of what that's going to cost them. And, that could take 2-3 weeks, and you're asking for all of these. We've got to be able to do that. And it segues into what we're doing. When I said, our customers, when we come across them, they say we do it in Excel, and we say, good, that's a testament that we listened to how this process works. But now we've built a tool that you're going to do more with. And at Advancing Preconstruction, we were proud to announce our insights and to showcase something we're going to release here soon, which is project comparisons, which is the ability to leverage that data early on in the process to generate a good estimate based off your other estimates that you've used previously, allow you to do a little bit of escalation up or down, depending on, changing the area or changing the timeframes, et cetera. And then pretty much generate a good idea quickly, because it's all about unlocking the talent to work and continue to not be beat up in that mundane process, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a rough order of magnitude that we have to come up with early, and we have to do them quick, and we have to articulate our expertise, right? I had one of our customers tell me this, Jim Gentile. He said, everybody's within 10% of one another that's worth their medal when it comes to design build, right? So how are you going to stand out? How are you going to win work? Well, you're going to do it through incredible teams. And that's what everybody I come across. I had Jim and Larry Lentero on my podcast, and they said, it's all about the people. It's all about the people. But then you've got to give them good technology to amplify and communicate that expertise to the client, and get them to want to engage. Because Who says this thing has to be no fun?
Yeah. Oh, it has to be. And I tell you what, it ain't any fun at the minute. People are getting bombarded and they're getting hassled. But you mentioned about the people. It's all about the people. People do business with people. I don't care if you're the best GC in the US or you're a mid-level GC. If people like you and you communicate well and you're honest and your integrity is in a good place, they will give you the business. But you've got to then back it up with the technology to be able to go, because you can't disappear then for 3 months and all of a sudden just produce something. There's got to be communication. There's got to be transparency. And I think that's one thing when I look at Join is the collaboration and the transparency. I think that's, and is that the new release project comparison? Is that helping transparency at a much earlier stage?
Yeah, it helps it in the earliest of stages. You know that when they ask, hey, how did you get to these numbers? Yeah. Well, it's like, here's my estimating system, right? That's not consumable by an owner. It's not consumable by an architect, the rest of the team, right? And it's not supposed to be, right? It's purpose built for what it does. Yeah. But what Join's capable of doing is creating a report around that you can then open up and bring all the stakeholders in and say, hey, here's the variables that we calculated. Here's the things that we thought. Here's our experiences in these areas and how we got here. Brilliant. Because you're right. It is about the people, but what the tools can do is we can increase transparency. We can let people understand. And people are, oh, well, I show them my Excel spreadsheet. I'm one of those people, I don't really understand it, right? It's really hard for me to see that. So it has to be in a different platform for it to be consumable and for people to feel free to move about the data and look at it from their own angles. Something I think we get wrong in modern delivery methods that I've learned from owners is we're assuming, when you hear target value delivery, we're assuming in a target value delivery that we know their value.
Yeah.
Well, we really don't, because we don't know completely understand their perspective. It's our job to communicate all the opportunities, give them an ability to digest that information, apply their own view to it, and then make an informed decision. Brilliant. That's how things get moved forward. And, you talked about the talent and the people that we have in the industry and unlocking them, something that Excel does. And we heard this early on from one of our early customers is it's a barrier to field folks coming over and applying that great knowledge to pre-con.
Yeah.
Because they're not an Excel wizard. And we had an early customer tell us that, listen, Join makes me super powerful in pre-construction and unlocks my ability to do more work because it's easy to use. It's simple. I can do it. And that's powerful, man, because we need those supers. We need those project managers. We need those experienced folks coming into pre-construction, because that's where we can make the most impact on design and get to fabrication and get to modular and get to these other opportunities so that we can build faster and better.
Brilliant. I love it. And that shift's happening. If you looked at 4 or 5 years ago at the GC, the resources they had, I would say 75% were in operations. You got to remember now that 25% that were in pre-con, I can see them jumping over, getting involved earlier, and it's now coming back to 70-30. And I hope they see it at 60-40, because the more pre-con, the more decisions are made earlier on, the better and the most success we're going to have. Just on the three-legged stool and your reaction at Advancing Preconstruction to project comparisons, I always talk about the three-legged stool: the architect, the owner, and the GC. Who's going to benefit most from that? Is it going to be everyone, or what was the reception like?
It was interesting because I would have said beforehand it would be the GC. Yeah. The GC, this is just a workflow that's a lot of back and forth that would just allow them to really get to pursuit faster and get their numbers out there and be confident and understand it. But we had a chance to show it to a lot of owners and architects, and they said immediately, oh, wow, this can truly impact our understanding of a project's viability and where it is right now, real early, and put it in our own terms. So I think the GCs ultimately right now will get the most value, but I already see owners really leaning into, tools like ours. And then you take a tool like something like Test Fit that can, give them an idea if something's viable early, and then they get to join and they go, okay, now this is really what construction is going to look like. And it is continuing to be viable. And here's where my gaps and understandings might be. The other thing then, though, I find interesting is that I think we're going to see architects and trades really benefit heavily, because the access to prefabrication technology and tools and products needs a path, right? It needs to be at the table early in the discussion. And when I came from the company I was with before, where there was this idea of like, everybody needs to be at the table. And I've said this over and over, that's like inviting your entire family over for Thanksgiving dinner and having a political conversation. Nobody leaves satiated and happy unless the pie is killer, right? Because the table's too big. But all of us, GCs, architects, everybody is banging on the door trying to sit at that table for every meeting and wasting time because they just want to be there when they need to answer that one question. Right. That they know they're going to be involved. Well, modern platforms allow them to be involved right when they need to be, to allow those decisions to be heard when they're supposed to be heard, and to, then consume it. So what's a good thing around that? If you're building out a huge hospital and you're going to redo bathroom pods over and over. Well, if you don't get those bathroom pods involved at 50% DDs before that, the manufacturers will tell you it's not worth it anymore. I toured, you said Advancing Precon. I went to Advancing Prefab, which by the way is growing leaps and bounds along with Advancing Preconstruction. In fact, I think they should do them in here, guys. I think you should do them like, I can't say week to week because that would just kill me for 2 weeks in a row, but there's got to be more drawn between the two because they're both growing so fast. But I saw SurePods at Advancing Prefabrication, and that's what they told us. But they make these custom killer bathrooms that fit everything they need, that have and they're just so well built. But if they're not heard and not brought to the table early, it's not going to happen. So I think, a platform like Join that connects collaborators at the right time for the right decisions is going to help everyone. And a lot of the things we're doing in there are just born out of what we're hearing from our customers, right? Any technology company that tells you we know better, you should be a little bit worried. We just think that we're really good listeners and we're really good at doing what we do. And all of us, I know this in our DNA, we're all really excited to be a part of construction, because where else do you get to walk around and see something that you physically saw digitally at some point in the world? Amazing. Where else do you get that?
Yeah. Digital fabrication. It has to happen. But as you say as well, if you've got everybody at the right time coming into a project and given their expertise, their area of expertise, and understand that surely the time between just after design or just pre-design right up to middle of pre-construction, surely that goes from there to there. And we can build things much faster, much safer, much bigger. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that we've learned too, is like decision making is one of the most critical KPIs that exist in the industry. But making a fast decision doesn't mean it's a good decision. It needs to be a very well-informed decision, and understanding all the things that go into making a good decision is what we've been doing. Where else are you going to do that? But in pre-construction, right? Where most of the earliest decisions and a lot of the back and forth decisions are getting made. So we're starting to understand what it takes to do that well. And you're right. Charlie Dunn and I have this conversation all the time. There's a compression happening. And unfortunately, with modern delivery, Precon grew a little more than it should have because of the back and forth, right? Well, the schedules didn't change. So we are continually compressing our people in the field. We need to learn more about the decision-making up front so that we compress that and allow construction the time it needs to deliver effectively and efficiently and safely, right? That reduces risk. It reduces all sorts of things if you can do that well. And again, wasn't that the people in pre-construction were wrong to increase that. They didn't have a tool set that could compress that. And
And
that's what's being built.
I think 100% that, but I think as well, the operations guys not being involved in pre-construction and not having 15, 20 years of building hospitals involved in pre-construction hasn't helped that either. So if you combine both those, the technology, the platform, and the experience, and I think you're onto a good thing. And I'm seeing both happen. The amount of companies that are now accepting technology and understanding that it's a good recruitment tool, because if I haven't got the technology that the client wants or needs, or the subcontractor wants and needs, I'm going to miss out on job after job after job after job. So if I haven't got that and the staff, then I'm in bother. I think I can see the penny dropping.
Yeah, no, I think we see that over and over. I was on the PM side of things for quite a while, and when I was in construction. And it was like, it's great if you go recruit these people and tell them all the great things we can do in construction. But if you hand them a clipboard when they hit the job site, you've already lost them.
Yeah.
They're not going to love it. So, I think it's a unique piece that we have to understand. It's a recruitment tool. Hey, listen, we use this great technology, but it's also efficient and effective. And, we saw just with, modeling tools, we saw taking people out of the field, bringing them in, and allowing them and teaching them to model, gave them the ability to continue to provide and pass that information along, in the VDC world, to say, listen, it's great to model it this way, but if you don't understand that you're not leaving enough room in the angle of that pipe for me to actually install it, you're killing me.
Yeah, 100%.
And the only people that know that are the people in the field.
Yeah.
And we need to unlock their information. Gareth, we think about this as like generation to generation. I'm also thinking I see a ton of companies who, it's really interesting. I will meet their people at all different conferences across the country, and I'll visibly see the silos in their own company where they're not sharing that knowledge and expertise because it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer, because if you've got something going on in, say, the central United States, and you've got something different going on and struggling on the East Coast, why not access how to do it better? Why not collaborate across your own company silos and release that information?
Absolutely.
That's some of the powers that we need here. And we need that in pre-construction. We need it from true builders, so that we set our projects up for success. I mean, if I was talking to anybody that's out there in the field right now working, coming into the office can have the biggest impact, because you can be a one-to-many. Right now, you're a one-to-one on a job, but if you can bring that knowledge into the office and provide it across multiple jobs, now you're helping everybody.
100%. It's incredible. And I see maybe out of the E&R top 400, I would say 35 that are doing it really, really well, but have been doing it for 5 or 6 years. I'm not talking about the last couple of years. They've been doing it for 5, 6, 7 years, and they're silently doing it. Now, I don't agree with that, because I think they should be sharing their successes. They should be sharing their failures to get everyone up to speed. I don't believe that them sharing that information will make the other company want a job over the top of them. They're always going to have the age. They're always going to have the people. They have the knowledge. I just think we need to start opening up our mind and sharing as much information as possible. Because as you say, 10% I think is the difference. You're always within 10%. That's not going to be the changer. At the end of the day, if everyone's within 10%, it's going to be the people with the company with the best people, and which the client likes, is going to end up winning the job.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a strategy to drive your culture, but culture eats strategy for breakfast, and it's your culture and your people. But culture without strategy, that's a common misconception. Culture without strategy is not going to get you anywhere. It's not pointing you in the right direction. And I fully agree with you, Gareth. The cool thing, I'll bring it back to advancing pre-construction, is what I have noticed this year is those folks that were silently doing it before. I don't know if it's them finally coming to the surface and socializing it, realizing that they need to do that, or if it's just that more people have picked up on it and they're socializing it. But I saw more of that sharing. And I will challenge any GC that thinks that secret sauce is going to help them, in that if you're the only one doing it, then you've got to teach each owner, you've got to fight each time. If everybody's adopting these processes, you can stop worrying about that and start worrying more about delivering and competing. And that's what you want to do. And we talk about this with the trades, all the trades I come across want to teach the other trades, smaller contractors, how to do fab, how to do modular, how to model. Why? Because they want that requirement from on every job. They want everybody doing it. Like, this is the way. Right now, I can go, oh, well, you'll stick build it. Great. I'll go to them instead. We don't want those things to go. And the only way we get there is sharing that information. The rising tide lifts all ships is absolutely real, man.
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
There's just no two ways about it.
Yeah, 100%. You know what? The industry, it's part of the VDC and BIM industry. I find those guys unbelievable at sharing stuff. They are incredible. Always out there being vocal, influencers, proper influencers, teaching proper things. It's amazing the value added, the value added service that they give to general contractors without even working for them, charging for it. It's unbelievable. I think within a pre-construction, and I think pre-construction's got to be, it can't be an overhead. It's got to be charged for. And if you're not charging for pre-con, you're missing a trick.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I will say, my Twitter account doesn't see a ton of activity, but I use it really to focus on a few areas. And it happens to be those BIM and VDC folks. I'm amazed at their willingness to share information like Dynamo scripts and automations and watch out for these things. And like, even when new releases of major products come out, they're warning each other and sharing, and they could easily be fighting, and they're 100%. Not. No. And you go to Advancing Prefabrication and you go to these events where the BIM and VDC folks are, and they're just super passionate. And I think it's because most of them have realized that it's a one-to-many in their own lives, at their own companies, and that it isn't some secret. Their Dynamo script isn't their secret sauce. It's their ability to understand and work from a model to a deployed, fabricated building, or infrastructure of some sort. So it's in their DNA. And I'm on, a host on the Construction Dorks with, 3 BIM and VDC guys, and we bring them on all the time.
Anybody hasn't tuned in, you got to tune into this. You got to subscribe to the boys. I've listened to a few episodes. Brilliant. Top class entertainment as well as technical knowledge.
We have a little bit of fun with it and a lot of technical knowledge. It really is the place to go get geeky. If you want to geek out, that's where you go to really dork out and get deep into the details. And we're all about it, man. And I think that's part of the socialization of what we're doing. That's why, you've got a podcast that's growing. I look at it this way, I would, my early podcasts seemed to compete with one another. And then all of a sudden, somewhere along the lines, podcasts started to realize that, like, oh no, we should actually like cross-pollinate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, every industry goes through this.
Yeah.
You think it's your thing. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, wait, I'm far more powerful by sitting down talking to Gareth, and I'm far more powerful having 3 shows and having everybody come on and different perspectives and talking. There's no one ring to rule them all in anything, and not in this medium either. I mean, this is all about sharing and getting out there. So,
and you always learn something, Jeff. You listen to a podcast in construction, you're learning something. You're taking something away from that, and you're more knowledgeable and more powerful for it.
Yep. Yeah. I cannot tell you how many, I've interviewed so many people, and that's the humbling part for me, is that people want to come on and share information, just like you've done the same. I always learn something from them.
Yeah. 100%.
I always take a nugget away where I'm like, ooh, this is great.
How did you come up with that? And you just start digging, and then before you know, you hit the treasure. Cool. And give me an idea now. As you say, you've interviewed a lot of good people. What's the biggest things you've learned over the last 12, 24 months, and even coming out of COVID? Because COVID was difficult, and I'm saying coming out of COVID, we're not through that just yet, but it's looking a lot brighter. How difficult was it, and what was the big lessons coming from you?
Oh, the biggest lessons, really early on, I interviewed a guy named Andrew Corin, and his take on COVID was very unique because there was no more option not to go remote, not to go virtual, not to do these things. And he said, it's amazing when there is no other option that you can actually get it done. Because his teams had been telling him for years that they couldn't do it. All of a sudden, enough pressure, they could do it, and they did it. And that was one of the biggest lessons. The other lesson for me is a little bit more nuanced, and it came from talks again with serial builders and owners that are opening up and sharing their information more, is that the needs for buildings, the needs for the infrastructure, the needs for the things that we're constructing in the future are going to be very, very, very different.
Yeah.
You know, Sala Eckhard from Microsoft put it so well: stop bringing me things that are 5 years old. I'm not concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is a kid in elementary school will want to come and work on one of Microsoft's campuses when they're an adult. And so if we're thinking 5 years in the past and they're thinking 15 years in the future, we are completely off. We need to start thinking about what these facilities will be. And it was interesting. I'm in a pre-call, I made that same comment to Dan Gallivan from Payet Architects. And he said, yeah, Jeff, think about this. We build and architect and design a lot of higher education, a lot of colleges. Who thought you'd need a drone room?
Huh?
What?
If you had told someone that, they would have went, no chance, no chance.
And so I think that understanding the value that our owners want and delivering more in the future and less in the past is going to be critical. The builders that can find those new innovative systems and incorporate those systems and future-proof what they're doing for their customers are ultimately going to be able to win more work and design better buildings. I mean, I think that's the other thing is we never know if another COVID's going to hit. We never know what's going to hit, but we need to be able to adapt and as humans still communicate and do business and work. And while silver lining, Zoom, these things were cool and really helped us stay connected, there's a disconnect here a bit. So I think mixed reality being involved in buildings in the future will be a huge thing. And I think the contractors that can understand that and can solve our problems when it comes to not only that, but let's be honest here. Decarbonization is one of the biggest problems. You know, our planet is going through a terrible moment, and it's not past the point of no return, but we're looking down the barrel of that gun. And we in construction have some of the biggest opportunities to solve those problems. People like to beat us up that we're the biggest carbon producer. Well, look, you can chase down the building product manufacturers. You can chase everybody down. You know what? Everybody has culpability. Stop looking at that and start looking at how we're going to solve it. How are we going to change our concrete mixes? How are we going to build, infrastructures that feed themselves? How are we going to implement new electrical technology that saves us on electricity? How are we going to integrate these new techniques into our construction so that we can compete and win more work and be the builders of choice and be the change that we want to lead? You want to talk about bringing people into your company. I guarantee you can bring a whole bunch of people into your company if you can say, that's where we're headed. That's what we're doing. That's what we care about. And we're using tools and techniques that are truly achieving it. And that's how you're going to stand out.
But the only way you can do that is by talking and by opening up and challenging yourself. Because I tell you what, there's a load of companies out there in their own heads. They think they're the best things in sliced bread. I can tell you they aren't. And until they start talking about it and getting their staff to talk about it, and there's some then that are unbelievable and don't talk about it. And they need to come out and just talk about it and let people know that they're here to stay, what they're doing about decarbonization. They're revolutionizing without telling people about doing it, and that's fine. I mean, if you want to sit in your own thing, but you got to talk about it and share things, and I think they will benefit from it.
Yeah, you want to look at a great one. Look at the Mace Group and Mark Reynolds. I've been just I'm hoping, I keep mentioning him on these things. I'm hoping one day I get a call from him or a LinkedIn line or something,
Right.
because Mark's really inspired me personally to take it to heart and take to having the conversation. Part of this is socializing it, but also not whipping each other around for it, but just saying, hey, come on out, let's talk about it. And you're right, Gareth, there's a ton that are out there talking the talk and they aren't walking the walk.
Yeah,
and there's a
100%.
bunch out there walking the walk and not talking. So we really need you talkers, you thinkers, to get out on the forefront and lead the industry. What a great place to be. And hey, if we do this right with all the tools that are being created, and there's so many fantastic tools, I can't even mention all of them that I love, that are building this connected ecosystem that's going to really truly give construction its next level change to succeed. And it should be fun.
And
I want the next group in going.
And I just hope, I just hope they're not ahead of their time. They've got to be. We've got to get up to their level quick. And if Mark's listening out there, hit up Jeff and get on his podcast. There you are. That's it, done.
Thanks, Gareth.
Cool. So Jeff, tell me, a bit of fun now. What is the funniest thing you've ever come across within construction? It can be anything.
Funniest thing I've ever come across in construction.
And
well, I got to go back to my IT roots, right? So I'm an IT guy, right? And early in my first company I ever was the IT guy for in construction. And lots of things were, it's aging infrastructure needs help, but things were, we were starting to change things and we were starting to figure out where our points of failure were. And then I kept getting this call every day that this one area would go down. And I was like, okay, let's try to investigate why this is going down. And then they say, they come in the morning, they'd be like, yeah, it died in the afternoon. And then we came back in the morning and it would work again. And I started climbing around looking, I'm like, where are all these computers going? And way back underneath a desk, I said, does anybody go back there very often? And lady's like, oh yeah, we were told to unplug that thing and plug in this thing that keeps the mice out at night.
It's the mice. It's always the mice.
And I looked up underneath and there was this network switch mounted underneath and they were unplugging and plugging it in. And that's why that group would go down every day. And so I said, okay, well, we have more than one problem here, but we're going to solve this a little differently. We're going to go in the walls and we're going to do a few things. But yeah, that was brilliant. Yeah, a few traps. That's probably the craziest thing I've seen on the IT side of things when it came to construction.
And how was it solved? Communication.
I asked a lot of questions, man. Yeah, ask a lot of questions.
That's the key. That is the key. Jeff, you've been an absolute legend. I'm going to do this again pretty soon just to find out where you guys are going, because, and if anybody hasn't listened to Andrew Zagowski, get on and listen. Co-founder at Join, incredible podcast episode. The guy's an absolute genius, and I can't wait to see where you guys go.
Yeah, he is. And he was the inspiration to come on. I really appreciate you bringing him on. I even learned from that episode with him. It's always funny when you're close to something and then you get a little space and listen. But thank you, Gareth, for all you do. I listen into the show all the time and I'm getting into the minds of the people that are delivering and really working hands and heads down in pre-construction helps all of us that are supporting it. We can't do it if we don't really know, and you give them a great platform to be free with that. So, from my side as a fellow podcaster, I truly appreciate what you're up to and what you're doing, what you've been able to accomplish along the path.
You're a gentleman, Jeff. Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you in person soon.
Thanks. You too, Gareth.